Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother and his wife out of my mother's funeral? I, female 31, lost my mother 3 weeks ago to cancer. It was devastating to say the least. I've already lost my dad and my older brother, and I was the only one to care for my mother, although I have a younger brother who now lives towns away with his wife and son. The issue started when my brother and his wife were struggling with rent. My mother agreed to let them move into my deceased brother's home under one condition, and that is to not throw away any furniture or try to make changes to the house since they were going to stay temporarily. My brother and wife agreed to this condition. But a month later, my mom started missing my deceased brother's stuff. His stuffs were thrown away. Furniture as well, and my brother's wife changed how the rooms look, claiming the decoration wasn't her style. My mom told them to stop, but my brother's wife got into an argument with her, and when my mom told them to leave, brother's wife spread rumors that my mom kicked her out when she was pregnant. No one knew, not even mom, and turned the family against me and mom. My brother and his wife cut contact. A few months later, my mom reached out, sent letters, and wanted to work it out. But my brother's wife blocked her and called her awful names. She later gave birth to a boy, and we didn't know till we saw a post on Facebook by coincidence. My mom was sick at the time, so she invited them. But sister-in-law refused to let my mom meet her grandbaby. Sent gifts, but were returned later. My mom was devastated knowing she won't see her grandbaby. I tried to talk to my brother, but I too was blocked. My mom passed. That was it. I stopped trying. It was too late. My mom left some fund for her grandbaby and told me to tell him about her when I get the chance. I was shocked to see my brother and his wife arriving to the funeral. I lost it when I saw them. My sister-in-law came to extend her condolences. I got into an argument with her and told them to leave. Sister-in-law said no hard feelings since I'm grieving. But I got mad. I kept yelling at them. My aunt told me to back down, but I insisted. They left, and others agreed with me. But my aunt berated me and said this behavior was disgraceful. She didn't expect this from me and said it was wrong. I feel horrible. My aunt spoke to my brother and she's been trying to get us to meet, but I keep saying no. Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. Not to be insensitive. They didn't honor her when she was alive, so why are they there to honor her when she's dead? Inheritance? Could also be to save face and try to keep the rest of the family on their side. Not a hole. OP, firstly, I am so sorry for what you are going through with losing your mom and having to deal with all this conflict. It is such a crappy position to be in. On the one hand, you have all your grief. Mom's passing, her cancer, and grieving the loss of your brother who is still alive. And the other is filled with your sister-in-law and brother hurting you even more. Your sister-in-law is out of line to say no hard feelings. To hell with her. She wants to be the hero who made amends. No, not now, not this time. You only have to deal with her when you feel ready. We had a similar conflict with my dad's passing and funeral. My mom and dad's younger brother got into a physical. I kid you not. Fist fight at the funeral. Opie, speaking from experience and a lot of hurt, please make your mental health a priority now. Take time to breathe after losing your mom. Don't allow people, like your sister-in-law, to manipulate you now to do things you don't want to. Your mom's passing is a separate issue from your sister-in-law and her made-up drama. Don't let them use "this is what mom would have wanted" as leverage to get what they want. They cannot speak on her behalf. All the best, Opie. If you need someone to process this with, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I listen without judgment, as I've been where you are now. It's a horrible place. Not a hole. Your brother might be grieving, but he wasn't there for your mom while she was alive. It really hurts her and your family. Not a hole. I wouldn't be surprised if sister-in-law only came because she expected to get something. Nevertheless, I wouldn't even mention the money your mother left their son until he reaches 18. Then give it to him personally. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to give my cut of my dad's inheritance? We have a complicated history. My dad wasn't a bad guy, but wasn't necessarily a good guy either. He stepped out on his wife and hooked up with my mom once. She didn't have a clue he was married. Then I, 27 male, was born, but he had no idea. I think I was maybe 6 or 7 when she was able to track him down. So the cheating came out, and they almost divorced, but stayed together, and my dad wanted to be part of my life. He'd come around all the time, take me out, and help my mom with money. For a few years, my dad tried to include me in stuff he'd do with my half-siblings, but they didn't like me, so they bullied me a lot. I met his wife a few times, and she was just nasty and mean. So after that, he stopped trying and went back to us doing our separate thing. But when I was 14, he started pulling back with contact. I think because it was still causing problems in the marriage. And then he just stopped coming around by the time I was 15. We talked sometimes over the years. They got a divorce in the end, but he still never reached out even when I'd try. He died recently and left me a letter apologizing for how he was, and he was too ashamed to try working things out after being out of touch for so long. It also said he knows money can't make up for him not being there, but wants me to have it. I was speechless. He left a small portion for my half-sibs, but in his will, most of his money is to go to me. They're really not happy about it because they say he barely left them with anything, and they're owed that money for all the trouble this caused in their lives. But this money, it could really help with so much, like actually finishing my degree, put a down payment on a decent house, and put the rest in a retirement fund or something. My half-siblings and even their mom are coming down hard, and won't stop with the messages because I'm not willing to split what's owed to them since they were his kids too. Don't even want to repeat what they say because it makes me feel horrible. I know they're still mad about the cheating and breaking up the family. This probably feel like another slap in the face to them. It's hard because, I want to use this money for my life. But I get that coming into their life as the affair child basically made it fall apart. So I can see why to them it feels like I owe them after everything. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You owe them literally nothing. Opie's dad knew what he was doing. He left them some money so they can't complain about it not being enough, unless they show their true colors by whining and being bratty. I don't think they're wrong to be pissed. Their dad cheats on their mom and ultimately they get divorced. And then the cheating dad leaves his inheritance to the kid conceived by dad? That must sting. Opie isn't an a-hole though. It's not their fault. I agree it probably would hurt. But they were financially supported their whole lives, where it sounds like dad only helped with the money for a few years with Opie. I wonder if dad helped the half-siblings with the university or other gifts later in life. This could just be Opie getting his share at the end. Not the a-hole. A will is the will. It's not your fault that he left you the amount he did, and he didn't give more to them. Not the a-hole. Your dad made the decision. The money's yours to do with what you want/wish. They are not entitled or owed anything by you. If anything, this is a karma thing, and the things they did that you probably don't know about is why things ended up the way that they are. Block, ignore, and move on. Sorry for your loss, and good luck. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for excluding my brother's kids from some family events? Context. I come from a large family, and it's considered really normal to help out or ask for help. And we often watch each other's kids, pick things up for each other, run errands, etc. I would describe us as laid back and generally low conflict. If people have an issue with something someone does, we usually address it with them privately so as not to embarrass them. The problem? One of my brothers is married to my sister-in-law, and they have kids, all under the age of 7. Sister-in-law has really specific ideas about parenting and what their kids should be allowed to do. She expects us to abide by her rules when her kids are at other family members' houses with the rest of the cousins. If the rules aren't followed, she doesn't say anything directly, but instead sends an email to the person with clear instructions on what they did wrong. The emails read like something from a boss. This happened a number of times over the years, but an event that happened last fall caused the current issues. During COVID, my mom has been babysitting the kids in our pod during the day and helping them with virtual school. Often there are 5+ kids there at a time. One of sister-in-law's rules is that her kids cannot have any food with dyes in it. No allergies, it is a general health thing. My mom forgot and gave one of her kids a popsicle during the day because everyone else was having one. The child was eating it when sister-in-law picked them up, And while she didn't say anything at the time, it was clear she was upset. My mom then received an email that began, "Per our recent discussion, it was my understanding that you understood that child cannot have food with dyes in it." It then contained bullet points suggesting how she could improve. My mother was really insulted. In addition, sister-in-law carbon copied my dad. He went to their house to speak with them, and sister-in-law apologized for her communication style, but pushed back on the dye thing and wanted an apology from my mom. My mom apologized, but also no longer watches their kids regularly by her own choice. Ever since that happened, everyone is pretty cautious around them and their kids. If we are doing something that might violate her rules, we don't invite them. This is honestly most things we do because the stuff she bans, exposure to any form of violence, refined sugar, dyes, yelling, playground equipment above 5 feet, etc., are not things we have issues with, within reason, with our own kids. Recently, my brother asked me and my other siblings about it, and we were honest. We feel like we are walking on eggshells around them. He says she communicates about serious topics through email because of her anxiety disorder. He defends her behavior's mama bear tendencies and thinks we can slowly help her by being patient. We refused. Are we the a-holes for excluding my nieces/nephews? When we have big family get-togethers again, they will always be invited, but not always for other stuff. Edit. Also, just to say, my sister-in-law is often really fun/pleasant. It is really just a parenting issue that she is so controlling about. We never had issues with her before they had kids. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your brother-in-law is pulling a bait and switch. The issue is not her emails. The issue is her desire to control every single factor in her children's environment because of her anxiety. It's her responsibility to deal with her issues in therapy, and it's not your family's job to help her by being patient. Her husband should be encouraging her to get therapy instead of enabling her. If she has an issue with the food served, she should provide snacks for her children. If she has an issue with the style of play, she should find her own childcare instead of insisting everyone cater to her. Every word of this, she's essentially holding the rest of the family hostage. She's also setting her kids up to go absolutely berserk when they get older. It's well known that overly stifling kids usually leads to a commensurate level of rebellion in the teenage and college years. She may mean well, but she's doing real damage. Not the a-hole. People are entitled to raise their kids how they like, but cannot expect everyone to voluntarily make their lives annoying. Also, a lot of food dyes are natural. Cyanide is all natural too. Not the a-hole. Mama Anxiety Bear needs to go hibernate in cotton wool world because the way she's trying to shelter her kids is unrealistic and will backfire on her one day. I pity these children. Unless you find a coven of other like-minded parents, her kids are going to be incredibly lonely and isolated. Then, when they are finally allowed out into the real world, all hell is going to break loose. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for talking to my parents about getting a lock to keep my brother and his wife from going in my room without permission? So for a little context, I, 21 female, am still having to live at home with my parents due to COVID messing up my plans for moving out. My parents are happy to still have me at home, and I'm okay living with them till I can earn enough money to move out. One of my brothers, 26 male, and his wife, 26 female, tend to visit us a lot, which I don't mind. I enjoy seeing my brother. I love him very dearly. And his wife is a really sweet lady who we all get along with really well. However, my brother has a tendency to just walk into my room, whether I am in there or not. He did this before to pet our older cat, who tended to spend most of her time in my room. And I know he loved that cat, but I also did not appreciate him just barging in without warning. He stopped doing this for a while after our old cat passed away. She will forever be missed. But I recently got 2 new kittens from a rescue because I felt like I needed a new cat to help me heal from the loss of my old cat. It has been amazing, but now my brother's tendency of barging in has gotten worse than it was before. I have repeatedly asked him to not barge in, and that if he wants to enter my room, he needs to ask for permission first and respect my answer if I tell him no. He always says sure or okay, but it is clearly in a very dismissive way. His wife will always follow him after getting an ice cream bar from our freezer and just sit on my bed with him eating. It has been 6 months of this routine by now, and I am sick of it. My room is my space to be on my own and recharge and for privacy, and they continually disrespect that. I got fed up this weekend when I was trying to get ready for a date with my boyfriend, and they just barged into my room to pet the kittens who were in there with me. I asked him to please leave and that I was trying to get ready, and he said that since I'm putting makeup on in the bathroom, why don't I just change in there too? And that he wants to pet the kittens. I gave up, got ready in the bathroom, and once I got home, I talked to my mother about getting a lock or something to put on my door so that they won't just go in, sit on my bed, and eat without my permission anymore. My brother heard about this because my dad, bless his heart, but he is oblivious sometimes, saw no issue saying we were going out to look for a lock when brother asked if we were home. Brother's now saying I'm just overreacting, that I have the kittens in there a lot of the time. They hate being away from me, so they usually follow me in there to sit on my bed and watch me as I'm doing anything in there. And he just wants to pet them. He says I'm being cruel to him and the kittens by not letting him in to pet them whenever he wants, and by apparently depriving the kittens of attention and interactions with people. I am just so sick of him and his wife barging in. But now I am starting to wonder, am I overreacting over this by looking at getting a lock to keep them out? Also, the sister-in-law never is the one who barges in. She usually just follows after brother a few minutes after he barges in himself. Edit. So someone pointed out in the comment that I should add this bit of info. When I am not there, I keep my door cracked open enough for the kittens to enter and leave the room as much as they want. And usually they go hang out with my parents and only go in my room if they need a litter box or a bite of food. I would never dream of forcing my kittens to stay cooped up in my room all alone when I'm not home. And most of the day, I also have my door cracked open for them as well, so that they can come and go as they please. Not Dayhall. You would not need it if just asked permission. He is a huge jerk. It does not matter if the kittens are there or not. It's your room. Put the lock, but also install a little cat door so they can enter and out whenever they want. Edit. Hopefully OP sees this so the kitties can go in and out whenever they want. I have 2 cats and there's nothing they hate more than a closed door. Not Dayhall. If your brother is so upset about not being able to pet some kittens, he can actually go adopt some himself. Kitten season is here, I believe, and there will always be cats flooding into shelters that could use homes. Why doesn't he go get some fur babies for himself he can pet at home? You deserve your privacy, OP. Hope you get that lock and you're able to have it after all this. Also, I'm sure those kittens aren't deprived of social attention and affection. Your brother's just wanting to be an a-hole. He has an older adopted cat he got about a month ago. Fat orange boy named Ferd who is super loving and sweet. And he loves that big guy. But I think he misses having playful cats about. I think he's also worried that, since he lives in a trailer at the moment out on a farm, any kittens would not survive out there.
Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to meet my biological mom after in person I signed up for a DNA testing site? Original post. I'm a 24 male who was adopted when I was 6 years old. I've always felt incredibly lucky because my adoptive parents, who were in their late 20s when they took me in, have been nothing short of amazing. They've loved and supported me as if I were their own flesh and blood, and I've never felt like anything was missing in my life because of being adopted. Growing up, I had very minimal details about my adoption. I know that I was removed from my biological family by social services due to neglect and abuse, but I don't remember anything about my life before I was adopted. It's not something I've dwelled on much, because I've never felt like I needed those missing pieces to feel complete or valued. Recently, out of simple curiosity, I decided to sign up for one of those at-home DNA testing kits. I wasn't looking for a reunion or any deep connection. I just wanted to know more about my genetic history, like why I was removed from my biological family, and if there were any medical issues I should be aware of. Honestly, I didn't expect to find anyone closely related to me, so it felt like a low-stakes way to get some answers. About 8 weeks after sending off the kit, I finally remembered to check the results. And to my surprise, I matched with my biological mother. She had sent me a message saying she was overjoyed that I had done the test and that she desperately wanted to reconnect with me and the rest of my biological family. She mentioned that she's thought of me every day and that I was always loved, and even that I have a biological little brother who is very excited to meet me, something I didn't even know. Her message was really emotional and, to be honest, overwhelming. But to me, she's a complete stranger, and reading those words didn't stir anything in me other than discomfort. I spent a lot of time crafting a thoughtful response to Bio Mom, explaining that while I appreciated her message, I wasn't interested in forming a relationship with her or any of my biological family. I made it clear that my reason for doing the DNA test was purely informational. I wanted to understand my past, maybe get some medical history, and learn why I was removed, but that was it. I apologized if my actions gave her the wrong impression. Bio Mom read my message and replied, saying that she'd be willing to give me all the information I wanted, but only if I agreed to meet her at a cafe to discuss our relationship further. I refused, telling her that I wasn't comfortable with a face-to-face meeting. I offered a phone call as a compromise, but emphasized that I just wanted the information and then for both of us to move on with our lives. She outright refused to provide any information unless I agreed to meet with her in person and discuss our relationship. I talked to my best friend about this, and she sided with Bio Mom, saying that I was being unfair. She argued that by signing up for the DNA site, I had essentially opened the door to this kind of situation, and that refusing to meet my Bio Mom now is like playing mind games and leading them on. So, am I the a-hole for not wanting a relationship with my biological mom after I signed up for the DNA testing site? Now, for the top advice before reading the update. Not a-hole. She's holding your info hostage to get you to meet with her, which is her being the a-hole. You were removed for a reason, and she probably wants to fill you with her version. Since you know her name, can you contact the agency that removed you to request the information? I could have always gone through the route of getting in touch with social services and seeing what they can tell me, though I am not sure how much they can share because of data protection, so I just thought it would be easier this way. Also, it would have been nice to hear it from my family's perspective if you get what I mean. She doesn't sound mentally healthy. Don't do anything that makes you uncomfortable. You owe her nothing, and she's manipulative as heck. She sounds like a pushy lady. I wouldn't agree to meet her. And she already told her son he'd be meeting you? I don't know, honestly. She must have at least told him that I was on his site. She could also be using him as a manipulation tactic. You're not the a-hole, and your friend is an idiot. Your bio mom made a choice to give you up. You had no control in that decision. All of these years later, she's still trying to control things, and you're not the a-hole for wanting access on your terms. I don't think Bio Mom made a choice to give him up. I think her actions triggered her son's removal. Otherwise, I agree with you 100%. This is an awful self-serving woman with no compassion for the man's feelings. Now for the first update. It's been about 9 days since I last posted, and I thought it was time for an update. I really want to thank everyone who took the time to comment and offer advice. I've read through everything, and it's been both helpful and eye-opening. So after all the advice and some serious thinking, I decided to talk to my biological mom again, hoping that maybe if I explained myself better, she'd understand where I was coming from. Unfortunately, the things went downhill fast. Instead of trying to meet me halfway, she just got more manipulative, insisting that I was being selfish for not wanting to meet her in person. She refused to give me any information unless I agreed to her terms, which was a hard no for me. I've come to realize that I was pretty naive to think that my biological family might be decent people after everything. I mean, I was removed from their care for a reason, but I guess a part of me wanted to believe that people can change. Looking back, I feel kind of dumb for even starting this whole journey. It's brought up a lot of emotions that I wasn't really prepared to deal with, and to be honest, I'm feeling pretty down about the whole situation. And as for my best friend, well, that's another disappointment. She didn't just side with my biological mom initially, she's been unsupportive throughout this whole mess. Even after I told her about the latest conversation, she couldn't really understand why I was so upset. She kept saying that I should just give them a chance and not be so harsh. It's like she doesn't get how hard this is for me, and I'm starting to feel like she never really did. It's tough because I've always considered her one of my closest friends, but right now I'm not sure she's someone I can rely on. After all this, I decided to sit down with my adoptive parents and talk everything over with them. I hadn't really opened up to them about how deep this was affecting me, but they were amazing, as always. They were upset when they heard how my biological mom was acting, and they reassured me that none of this is my fault. They reminded me that there is a reason I was removed from that situation, and it's not on me to fix it or make things right with people who've clearly not changed. Talking with them made me realize just how lucky I am to have them. They've been there for me every step of the way, and they made it clear that whatever happens, they're my real family, the ones who loved and supported me no matter what. It's hard not to feel down after everything that's happened, but having them in my corner makes it a bit easier to cope. Honestly, I regret even starting this whole DNA journey. It's brought up more pain than I expected, and I can't help but wish I just left the past where it belongs. But at the same time, I'm grateful that it's reminded me of how blessed I am to have my adoptive parents. They're the ones who've always been there for me, and I couldn't ask for a better family. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to focus on the people who truly care about me and let go of the rest. It's not easy, but I know I'm on the right path. Thanks again to everyone who reached out. It's really helped me feel less alone in all this. I'm sorry this happened this way. Glad to hear your parents are supportive and understanding. As an adoptive mama, I just want you to know that you were 100% in the right. I'm sorry you didn't get the information. You are in my thoughts. I hope we can give our kiddo a blessed life like your adoptive parents gave you, and he thinks as well about us when he is your age. Take care and be well. You're a good person. As someone who was adopted at 10 days old who's now 51, my parents were my best friends along with my wife. They're 84 now and still going strong. Did a DNA thing for cultural interest, but never really looked at the matches and never read any messages to me. OP, stick with your family. Sounds like they're pretty amazing. Good luck. OP, you can probably request your child welfare records if you know what state you lived in when you were removed. You are entitled to records about yourself, and while they may be redacted, you can hopefully gain some insight as to the situation if that's what you want. Last update. Hey everyone, I've been thinking a lot about my family today, especially after everything that's been going on lately. It got me reminiscing about some of the best moments I've had with them. And there's one memory that stands out. Something from when I was still a kid that I'll never forget. I must have been about 8 years old, just a couple of years after I was adopted. It was around Christmas time, and I remember feeling nervous because it was only my second Christmas with my adoptive parents. Holiday always makes me feel weird, even now. Anyway, my dad's friends own a Christmas tree farm, and that year, my mom and dad decided to take me to pick our Christmas tree. We went what felt like hours walking through rows and rows of trees. My parents kept asking me which one I liked best, and I remember feeling so much pressure. Like I had to pick the absolute best one, or else I'd ruin Christmas. But they were so patient, letting me take my time. Finally, I pointed out a tree. Honestly, it looked like every other one to me, but my parents made a huge deal out of it. My dad knelt down to start sewing, and I remember him pretending to struggle, saying, "Oh no, I think this tree might be too strong for me." My dad made me come over and help, saying he couldn't do it alone. So there I was, this little 8-year-old pretending to help my dad saw down this tree. Of course, I wasn't actually doing anything, but they made me feel like I was the strongest kid in the world. When the tree finally fell, my dad swept me up in his arms and spun me around, saying, "We did it." After we got home and set up the tree, my mom brought out these old boxes full of ornaments. She told me that we were going to start a new tradition. Every year, we'd each pick out one new ornament to add to the tree, something that represented something special from that year. That night, they handed me my very first ornament, a little wooden bear holding a heart with the word family carved into it. My mom said, "This one's for you, because you made our family complete." I remember holding that ornament, feeling this huge wave of love and belonging that I'd never really felt before. At the time, I don't think it even hit me how impactful that was. How that moment defines the way I look at myself today. I was part of a loving family. I was their family. Every Christmas after that, we'd pull out that little wooden bear and hang it up first. It became our tradition. The reason I've been thinking about this memory today is because it's a reminder of how lucky I am to have the parents I do. They didn't just give me a home, they gave me a sense of belonging, and they gave me love. Even with everything that's been going on, I know that I've got something really special, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Anyway, thanks for letting me share this. I just needed to remind myself how amazing my family is, and I hope it brings a smile to your face like it does to mine. Next story. Am I the a-hole for stopping financial support for my sister after she bought a new car? For a few years now, I've been financially supporting my sister who's had trouble keeping a stable job. She's constantly complained that she can barely make ends meet, so I've been sending her $200 a month to help with groceries, rent, and other expenses. I did this because I felt that family should always support each other when needed. A few days ago, I saw on her Instagram that she bought a brand new car. I was shocked because according to her, she was struggling just to pay her bills. When I asked how she could afford it, she told me she took out a loan because she needs a car to get to work. I found that really irresponsible. She could have bought a used car or waited until she was in a better financial situation. I decided to stop sending her money because I feel like she's taking advantage of me. But when I told the rest of my family, they said I'm overreacting. They think I should keep supporting her because I make good money, and it's only $200 a month. Now I feel guilty, but at the same time, I think she's making poor financial decisions. Am I the a-hole for cutting off financial support after she bought a car? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. If she can afford a new car, she doesn't need your money. You're not responsible for funding her poor decisions. Family helps, but not at the cost of being taken advantage of. Exactly. I agree. If she can afford a car, why is she asking for money? If $200 per month is no big deal, then presumably your family can cover it. If it is a big deal, they have no business telling you what to do with your money. Exactly. And on top of that, she's taking money and buying a car right away. It's just ridiculous. Tell them you need the money to buy a new car. Have you even ever had real thank you? Not the a-hole. If she could get a car loan, she hasn't been struggling. She used you. I'm sorry about that, but you live and learn. Exactly. I think the same. She took advantage of me and I know how she is. You have to learn from mistakes. I'm 51 and bought a 1998 Buick Century with 65,000 miles on it. The AC didn't work for 2 years. She's taking advantage of you. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my brother and his family stay with me after their house flooded? Hey everyone, I'm 34 female living in a 3-bedroom house that I own. It's just me here, and my brother 37 male and his wife 35 female have 2 kids, ages 8 and 5. A few days ago, their house flooded due to a burst pipe, and it's going to take weeks for the repairs. They've asked if they can stay with me during this time. But I refused, and now the whole family's upset with me. Let me explain. My brother and I aren't super close, but we get along well enough. However, his kids are extremely energetic, and honestly, a bit destructive. When they visit, they run around, touch everything, and the last time they were here, they broke a vase that belonged to my late grandmother. My brother and his wife laughed it off, saying kids will be kids, and didn't offer to replace it. Also, I work from home full-time and have a demanding job. I need a quiet environment to concentrate, and with 2 kids running around, that's not going to happen. I suggested they stay with my parents, who live about 20 minutes away, but they said my parents' house is too small for all of them, and that it's more convenient to stay with me because I'm closer to the kids' school and their workplaces. My brother told me I was being selfish and not considering their situation, and my parents hinted I should be more generous and that family's everything. But I really don't want to live with 2 kids running around my house for weeks. I know they're going through a tough time, but I don't think I should have to upend my life because of it. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to let my brother and his family stay with me? Not the a-hole. Give them the real reason. Your children are loud and destructive. When they had an accident last time, you didn't care. so I don't want you in my home. They don't have a good history with Opie staying in her house. And the whole family who is upset can chip in to pay for a rental. Plus, their insurance might cover some of that expense. You have a 3-bedroom house. 1 bedroom for you, 1 for you to work from home, and 1 for the family of 4? But they said my parents' house is too small for all of them. An extra 20 minutes travel for school and work is nothing. It will motivate them to get their house fixed sooner. It sounds like your parents don't want them either, which is why they're pressuring you, not a-hole. Oh no, they expect Opie to give up her office for her family because she doesn't really need it and we need a space more. So Opie has 1 bedroom, brother and sister-in-law have 1, and the kids have the other bedroom. Are you kidding? She'll have to give up her bedroom because they're family and of course guests. Also, the precious kids can't be asked to share a room. She's on a couch, of course, as well as being the unpaid maid and babysitter because you work from home. So it's not like she really works, right? Most homeowners and renters insurance will put them up in a hotel. You could remind them of that. PSA to renters. Spend $300 a year and get renters insurance. It's worth it. It's always so upsetting to have people try to pressure you into giving funds because someone, neighbor or coworker, lost their belongings to a fire and they couldn't be bothered to pay for a minimal renter's insurance plan. The insurance policies are ridiculously cheap. I mean, a $10K policy used to run around $20 a month. There's a bed, couch, a few tables and chairs, and a replacement wardrobe. It's not extravagant, but it'll get you going. Most people spend way more on expensive coffees daily. Update. Am I in the wrong for telling my ex-husband that our kids are justified in feeling like they don't have a father? Original post. I'm 33 and have 2 kids, 12 and 8. I divorced their dad when I discovered he was cheating on me with a mom from our younger son's school group. Despite that betrayal, I agreed to shared custody because I wanted my kids to grow up with their father in their lives. However, since the divorce, he's only been around when he's picking them up for visits. He often goes out with his stepchildren, but rarely includes our kids, claiming those outings are spur of the moment and can't always include them. Eventually, I stopped pushing, but I've always thought it was unfair that he keeps his distance from our children's lives. Recently, I decided to upgrade my older son's computer, and he asked if we could give his old one to his cousin, my brother's son. My brother has been a huge support for my kids. He's always available to take them to their school events when I can't, and often takes them out to the park or on trips when I'm busy. My ex, on the other hand, is rarely available for them. Anytime I ask him to help with an activity, he has an excuse. He's out of town or swamped with work. Ironically though, whenever his stepkids need something, he's there. Once he even argued with his stepkid's father at a school event, insisting he had a right to be there. When my ex found out I gave the computer to my nephew, he got upset. He complained that if I had money to spare on a gift like that, I should have forgiven 2 months of child support he'd missed, since his finances were tight with a new baby. He added that if I could give away a computer, I should have gifted it to either his kids or his stepkids, who shared just 1 computer among the 3 of them. I told him my finances were none of his business and that I owed nothing to his stepchildren. Then his wife jumped into the conversation, accusing me of spoiling my son by giving him a new computer and of being petty for letting my son bring it to their house, claiming it was just to show off in front of his step-siblings. I told her she had no right to speak to me that way or question my decisions. I added that I allow my kids to see their father so they can grow up with him in their lives, not so she can interfere with how I parent. My ex was offended, but I told him this whole situation could have been avoided if his wife hadn't inserted herself where she doesn't belong. After that, things seemed to calm down until last week. I went to pick up the kids, and my ex was visibly upset. He explained that he'd tried reading a bedtime story to our youngest. At home, he still likes to be read to before bed, usually by me, his brother or my brother. And when none of us are around, he listens to audiobooks. Apparently, my ex wanted to make an effort to connect, so he offered to read to him, but our son turned him down, saying he didn't need him for that because he could do it himself. My ex stayed to listen as he searched for a story for 8-year-olds without a dad on his tablet, and it hit him hard. The next day, my ex offered to take our older son to basketball practice, but he replied that he'd be going with his dad. He quickly corrected himself and said, "Uncle." That made my ex even angrier, and when I came to pick up the kids, he confronted me about it. I told him that if our kids feel like they don't have a father, he has only himself to blame. He tried to shift the blame onto me, saying I was the one pushing him away from his role. I told him it's up to him to show up for his kids. It's not something I can do for him. I reminded him he was the one who broke our family and has chosen to be more involved with his stepkids than with his own children. I told him not to kid himself. The kids are growing up, and they're starting to see the reality of who he is as a father. If he keeps this up, he can't expect much from them in the future. After that exchange, his mom called me. While she's always been polite to me, I felt the need to say that I would have appreciated the same concern from her when she supported her son's affair, knowing her grandchildren were losing their father in the process. She hung up, and we haven't spoken since. My brother advised me that I had every right to express how I feel, but he suggested that maybe this discussion shouldn't have happened in front of the kids. Later, my ex texted me saying that if I weren't so difficult, he'd spend more time with them. I told him his duty as a father doesn't depend on whether I'm easy or not, and he knows I've never prevented him from seeing the kids. The truth is, when he has to choose, he prefers outings with his stepkids over his own children, and that's something only he can change. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. You can only do so much, OP, and don't let him off the hook for any child support. The fact that it's stretching his budget is a him problem, not a you problem. And I agree with your brother that conversation should have not happened in front of the kids. But if I understand correctly, your ex chose the time and place, not giving you much choice in the matter. Not the a-hole. I love how if she had extra money, she should forgive child support. But him already knowing money was tight wasn't a reason to not have another kid. My ex stayed to listen as he searched for a story for 8-year-olds without a dad on his tablet. Your kid is ruthless. Good for him. Not the a-hole. 8-year-olds can be ruthless. They seriously don't hold back. They understand so much more at that age. First update. First, I want to thank all of you. I didn't expect to receive so much advice, and I never thought this app would be so useful. It's not very popular in my country. Now back to the topic. My ex sent me messages saying he wanted to resolve things, stop arguing and talk. I agreed. He came to my house and we didn't beat around the bush. We went straight to the point. He asked if I really thought he was a bad father. I replied that, looking back, I never would have chosen him to be the father of my children. He said it wasn't easy for him, and I answered that it wasn't easy for me either, because I've been taking on both his role and mine. He told me he couldn't leave his stepchildren without a father because he had already broken their family. I replied that in doing so, he left his own children without a father. He started crying and told me it was my fault, saying that when the infidelity happened, I refused to forgive him or go to couples therapy. I kept telling him things that, I'll admit, were unkind, but none of them were lies. He asked me if I felt sorry for him given his current state, and I said no. He told me he didn't think I could be so cruel. I replied that when I changed jobs, pulled my kids out of school 2 months before the term ended, moved houses, and watched him disappoint our kids over and over again, any empathy I might have felt had turned into apathy. He left after that. His mother called me as saying she knew what I had told her son. She said he hadn't stopped crying, and that she didn't understand how I could carry so much hatred and hurt him like that. She told me I should just get over it. I answered, with all due respect, what I said wasn't out of hatred but truth. If your son is crying, it's because he's finally facing the consequences of his actions. Maybe instead of worrying about how he feels now, you should have taught him how to take responsibility and treat people with respect. She said I didn't know what it was like to feel a mother's love and see a child suffer. I replied that I do understand because I have 2 children who cry over a living father. Two children who see their dad being a father to other kids when he doesn't have time to be a father to them. She said he was sorry, and I told her not to put words in his mouth and to stop calling me about anything related to her son. I hung up. I wanted to cry so badly, but I'm a damned mother, and I don't have time for that. I want my kids to feel safe, loved, and strong enough to not need anyone, not even me, to be themselves. Last Thursday, I took my kids to their cousin's birthday party hosted by my ex-sister-in-law. I still have a good relationship with her. She was the one who told me about the infidelity and that her mother was encouraging it. My ex showed up alone and irritated. My kids kept their distance from him. They kissed his hand but then ignored him completely. My ex-mother-in-law told the kids they should show more respect to their father. My eldest replied that he doesn't show respect for me since he and his partner talk badly about me. I scolded my son, not for what he said but for how he addressed his grandmother. I told him it was wrong to eavesdrop on private conversations and repeat them. Then I asked him to gather his things because we were leaving. My ex-mother-in-law asked me not to leave, saying the kids were having fun and we could resolve this as adults. She asked my ex what he had said, and he claimed not to remember. I told her I didn't care. She said we should be good parents. I replied that to be good parents, you need to be good people first. My ex was getting agitated. My ex-mother-in-law asked why we couldn't have a civilized co-parenting relationship. I told her everything I've mentioned here, about his free will to see the kids, and how the second custody agreement isn't working since he only sees them some weekends. My ex didn't want to discuss it, saying he had too many kids at home. My ex-mother-in-law told him the only kids who should feel comfortable are his, and the comfort of the others should be provided by their biological father. My ex wanted to end the conversation because his mother was scolding him for being a careless father. He also said it was my fault. I asked him to clarify how it was my fault. You can see the kids whenever you want. What more do you want? He started yelling, claiming I was only being petty because I didn't really need the money since I earned more than him and had fewer kids to feed. I told him I wouldn't continue the conversation and that I'd show him what being uncivilized looks like by filing for the overdue child support payments. His mother asked what I meant by overdue payments. I explained that he was 3 months behind. She was furious, slapped him, and demanded to know what he had done with the money for his children. He answered, I couldn't let JR miss out on attending the same school as my son. I didn't want him to feel inferior. My ex-mother-in-law said she couldn't believe it, and they started arguing. I left. For context, my youngest son attends a private school, and my ex pays for his stepson to attend the same school. Yesterday, my ex-mother-in-law came over and said she would pay the overdue fees. She brought the money in cash. I knew my ex would be furious. Here's some context. My ex-mother-in-law doesn't work, doesn't own anything herself, and lives with my ex-sister-in-law. However, she does have significant savings from her inheritance. If she pays the tuition, my ex knows there won't be much left for him when she passes, even though she's still healthy. He's been asking her for years to invest some of that money in his business ideas, but she's always refused. My ex's retaliation was not picking up the kids this weekend. Yesterday, my ex-sister-in-law called me. She doesn't know all the details yet, but apparently my ex's 15-year-old stepson punched him in the mouth. She said she'll let me know exactly what happened once she finds out. And before anyone asks, the new custody agreement will likely take a year to finalize. The court says the overdue payments are the priority, and the rest can wait. We have more urgent cases. At least his mama finally got some sense her son is a POS. He obviously fed her a line of BS when she was defending him. He's her baby boy. He would never do no wrong, etc., etc. I'm glad he got exposed. When the evil mother-in-law turns on her spoiled child, you know he was 100% wrong. It's not even a question of perspective anymore. The chef's kiss was being punched by the stepson he prioritized his own kids over. Bet he feels utterly ridiculous now. He was his mom's affair partner. No matter what he does, those kids will always hate his guts. Second update. As I mentioned earlier, my ex's stepson had an altercation with him because my ex refused to let him go out. Now I have more details. My ex's stepson had plans to go bowling with some friends. His biological father had already given him permission and money for the outing. However, when he told his mother, she said he couldn't go because they needed him to stay home and watch his younger siblings. My ex and his wife had planned an outing and needed someone to stay with the kids. This led to an argument. The boy raised his voice to his mother and my ex stepped in to demand that he respect her. The boy replied that he wasn't his father. Trying to maintain authority, my ex told him that as long as he lived under his roof, he had to follow his rules. The boy ignored him and turned away. My ex followed him and touched his shoulder to get his attention. At that moment, the boy turned around, punched him, and shouted that he wasn't his father and could never compare to him. The mother scolded him for his behavior, but the boy, still angry, shouted back that he hated her. This version was shared by my ex and his wife with my ex-mother-in-law. My sister-in-law later related to me. They went to see my ex-mother-in-law to try to gain her sympathy and convince her to take care of the kids, the two stepchildren and the baby, so they could go out. However, my ex-mother-in-law told them she would not take care of the children. When I spoke to my ex, he mentioned he was dealing with family issues and claimed that the boy's biological father was turning the boy against him. He didn't give me many details and omitted most of what my sister-in-law had shared. He simply informed me that, due to the situation, he wouldn't be able to pick up our children this weekend. The 15-year-old boy is now staying with his biological father. As for what I mentioned earlier, my ex was 2 months behind on child support. And that same week, he was supposed to make another payment. He didn't, leaving him 3 months behind. In the end, his mother was the one who covered the overdue amount. Regarding the child who attends the same school as my son, it's not the 15-year-old involved in the altercation. It's the younger stepbrother who is 8 years old, the same age as my son. I decided to enroll my son in that school when the affair became public. At the time, I was working as a kindergarten teacher at the same school and the boy had been one of my students. We all knew each other, and to protect my children from rumors, I transferred them to a private school. This happened 2 months before the school year ended. Thanks to the circumstances and the support of some kind people, we managed to get them admitted. Wow, dude's so thick he can't see that the only person turning the kids against him is himself and his actions. Did he think that all the children in the marriages he destroyed would be understanding or something? Dude sounds like a narcissistic tool who will still be blaming you for turning the kids against him when they go no contact with him after they turn 18. Wait. So a fair partner's son was in your kindergarten class, and you transferred your son to a different school to get away from them, and they moved a fair partner's son to that school too? Seems rather crappy of them. But they are siblings now. They got to get along. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend to stop telling me how to spend the money I won? I live in the UK and I recently won a life-changing amount of money. By this, I mean enough to quit my job and never work again. I lived with my girlfriend and told her about the win. She was excited about the fact I'd won, and we started talking about what to do with it. We live in quite a deprived part of the UK, so my girlfriend immediately started talking about moving to a city and living somewhere nicer. I said no to this, as family and friends are nearby and my parents are both quite ill, so I don't want to move far away and have to travel far to see them. She said we could look at cities that aren't too far, but I again refused and just said we'll look at a nice house in a better part of the town we live in. She said she doesn't want to continue living here if we have this much money. I told her it's me who has won the money, so she doesn't get to tell me how to spend it. She just said she wants to move away, but I reiterated that it's my winnings, not hers, and the final decision is mine. She said I wasn't being fair by not considering it. But I told her she was being unreasonable for expecting to dictate how I spend the money. She said we're a couple and should be making the decisions together, but I told her that some things aren't up for discussion and that I'm not moving away. She just called me unreasonable and said I should be considering her opinion on it. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend to stop telling me how to spend the money I won? Now for the comments. Do not get married to this woman without getting thorough legal advice on how to protect your assets. And I'd add, don't have a kid with her either. Don't leave debit or credit cards around. Change all passwords and bank statements. Don't tell anyone else about this, and laugh and say it was only $10,000 when people start asking questions. Always lie and say you have less. Recently won a life-changing amount of money. Pretty crazy how often this seems to happen on here. Some people really underestimate what is required to be able to quit and never work again. Financial literacy is quite low. When people win such massive amounts, they get the itch to spend. Forget the money for a moment. There's an existing incompatibility issue with not wanting to live in the same type of area. If that can't be solved, nothing else about this relationship, including how to spend the money, matters. Update. Am I the a-hole for exposing my wife's cheating and not wanting to do anything with a child that isn't mine? Original post. 2 weeks ago, I found out that my 5-year-old child isn't biologically mine. I felt deeply hurt and betrayed when I realized that my wife of 6 years, with whom I've been in a relationship for 9 years, cheated on me and got pregnant by another man. Without telling my wife, I decided to take a paternity test. When I got the results, I immediately confronted her. In my anger, I called her a whore and many other names. She started crying and explained that she hid the truth because she didn't want to break our happy family of 3. When I asked her why she cheated on me, she said it happened during a nasty argument we had years ago. She claimed it was just a one-time fling and that she's been loyal to me ever since. She admitted she had doubts about whether I was the father but never took a paternity test. She said she was happy seeing me happy and didn't want to have an abortion for the sake of our family. She also said she didn't tell me the truth to keep the peace. I told her I was divorcing and that I didn't want to be a part of our son's life. She started crying and begged me not to break our family apart. She insisted that I'm still his father and that I've been a wonderful father and husband. She asked me to forgive her and not let DNA destroy our lives. She continued begging, but I left immediately. Afterward, she began blowing up my phone with calls and messages. Initially, I decided not to tell anyone about what had happened, but I became so angry that I told everyone. Now, everyone is furious at my wife. Her parents have said they want nothing to do with her and have cut contact. My sister furiously called my soon-to-be ex and cursed her out. On the other hand, her brother and sister think I humiliated my wife and should have kept this between us instead of making it public. Yesterday, her sister called me and urged me to take my wife back and return to my son. I told her I don't have a son. She got angry, started cursing me and said I'm a weak, pathetic man. She told me no wonder my wife cheated on me and that I'm so insecure and weak that I had to go behind my wife's back to take a paternity test. She accused me of giving up on my son just because we don't share blood, and claimed that I'm the reason my wife is now alone and depressed. I hung up on her and instead called her husband to tell him everything. I even told him that her family's full of nut jobs and that maybe he should get a paternity test as well because he shouldn't trust them. He apologized on his wife's behalf and we ended a call. Now, I'm ignoring all calls from my wife and her sister. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Don't let DNA destroy our lives. Oh, it was the DNA that did the destruction. Damn, science. LMAO. Speaking of which, get an STD test. The cheater on the next update. Don't let an STD test destroy our lives. Damn crazy how DNAs just go around ruining marriages and destroying lives like that. Not the a-hole. Yep, those lying, cheating DNAs. The poor kid. Yeah, I really feel for the child here. At 5 years old, he has bonded with his father, who is now going to abandon him because of his mother's actions. That can mess a kid up for life. How do you explain to a 5-year-old why his daddy doesn't love him anymore? More importantly, how does Hopi just stop loving his 5-year-old? Now for the first update. I was absolutely shocked to see 10,000 comments on my post, and so many DMs when I checked it again yesterday. I'm thankful to everyone who reached out. I couldn't go through all the comments, but I took the time to read many of them. To those asking if I'm okay, I'm not, but I'll survive. Also, why are some people calling me misogynistic and saying I deserve to be cheated on? If your husband came to you and confessed to have a child outside of your marriage, wouldn't you curse him out? This isn't about gender at all. I decided to do the paternity test because my sister kept urging me to. She asked me multiple times, but I brushed it off. I never thought my wife would cheat on me, let alone get pregnant by another man. My sister is my best friend and has always looked out for me. She insisted I do the test because my son didn't look like me at all. I told her he looked like his mom, but she pushed me, and I'm glad she did. She was heartbroken seeing me cry and angry at my wife. I must have hugged her for hours, crying, because I truly loved my son. But being around him reminded me of my wife's betrayal, which made the pain worse. After reading comments about how my son is a victim just like me, I decided not to cut him off completely right away, because it might mentally scar him. I called my wife and she picked up right away. I told her I was coming over to meet my son. She cried and said she was glad I was coming. I asked her if her sister was still there and she said she was. I told her to make sure her sister didn't speak to me or I'd punch her filthy mouth. She assured me her sister wouldn't interact with me. When my son saw me, he was very happy and hugged me instantly. He asked where I had been, and I picked him up and I told him I had been working. I played with him for an hour and gently explained that I would be away frequently but would still visit and stay in touch. He didn't like the news, so to cheer him up, I told him I'd prepare a surprise for his birthday in December. I'm not sure what yet, but I'll figure it out. After we went outside to play, I talked to my wife. She immediately latched onto me, hugged me, and started crying. She begged me to come back to her and not give up on our family over a mistake. She said she had wanted to abort the pregnancy but didn't because I was happy. She insisted she had been loyal to me ever since. I got even angrier and grabbed her arm, yelling that she destroyed me and our son. I told her that when our son finds out the truth, he won't love her as much as he does now. I said, I came in you every single night. Where did it all go? But a random man comes in you once and you got pregnant? We both know I'm not infertile. I told her I wanted to tell everyone we know the truth. Her friends, her friends' friends, the whole neighborhood, every single member of her family, even those living in China or people she hasn't spoken to in years. I even wanted to tell all her future partners. She started crying and shaking. I told her I wouldn't do it, not because of her, but because it would hurt the innocent child and ruin him. I said, don't misunderstand. I'm doing this for him, not for you. She said I was the love of her life and that she couldn't live without me. She vowed to wait until I calmed down and fight for me. She said she wouldn't let her family break apart over one mistake. She promised to give me as many children as I wanted, that she would get paternity tests for all of them, and started kissing me desperately. I pushed her away and said, you're delusional. You're acting like you've ruined my car or something. I would have forgiven you for anything else, but this is a betrayal to your husband and your own child. I yelled at her sister to get her professional help because she's losing it. Before she could say anything, I left because I wanted her to feel as miserable as possible. After I returned, I texted my wife saying I would visit frequently for my son, but that I'm only thinking about him, nothing else. I told her not to make things worse than they already are, to think about him and to be a good mother. I'm now living with my sister who has been fully supportive. She hugs me until I calm down, even if it takes hours. I'll start divorce proceedings soon. I know I'm his father, so I probably won't escape child support, and even if I do, I feel a moral obligation to be in his life. As for my wife and her sister, screw them both. They're both awful, and maybe it runs in their blood. For her, it's just a mistake. For you, it's years of lying. That's the part that really pisses me off. Calling the biggest betrayal just a mistake. Makes me think she's not contrite and just manipulating to get him back, versus really soaking in the gravity of how big her mistake ruined the lives of the two people she should love the most. Sorry you're going through this. One thing that bothered me about your post is that you said you're not cutting off your son right away. Decide if you're in or out on being a father and act accordingly. It will be worse for the child if you let him become more attached to you and then leave. If he's on the birth certificate, he can't just wash his hands off the child, even if it isn't his. Second update. It's been a month since I found out that my son isn't biologically mine. I've been seeking therapy and I've realized that I love my son deeply, even though he isn't biologically mine. I've always loved him and I always will. In my anger, I called my wife names, which I didn't intend to, but she betrayed me. As for my sister-in-law, she definitely deserved it, because she called me weak and treated me like crap after I found out the truth. After a lot of therapy sessions, I've come to realize that it's better to make peace with everyone and focusing on being in my child's life. I don't know why I keep getting angry messages accusing me of going too far, saying my situation is fake or insisting that I should forgive my wife. I agree that I was angry, but betrayal like this is far worse than just cheating. In any case, I'm posting again because I've truly tried my best. I talked things over with my sister-in-law. Thankfully, she wasn't hostile. We apologized to each other, and while we still don't like each other, we've made peace. I visit my home every few days. My sister-in-law, my wife, and my son still live in the house. I'm tolerating all of this because of my child. I just want a clean divorce from my wife. But I also want to stay in my child's life because I'm the only father he has ever known. Even though he's still young, I don't know how or when to tell him the truth. Every time I visit to spend time with my son, my wife always hugs me. I've stopped pushing her away because it never works. I just let her hug me and vent. She keeps apologizing and saying how sorry she is and how much she wants me back. I always tell her I'm only there for my son. She cries but thankfully doesn't say much in front of him. 3 days ago, when I visited my son, I absolutely adore him. He's always so excited whenever I come to see him. I told my wife that I've hired a lawyer, but only when my son wasn't around. My wife freaked out and begged me not to split our family apart. She said that while my son might not have my DNA, he is still my son and she is still my wife. She insisted that we could make things work, live happily, and that she would give me as many children as I wanted. I left after she vented. I'm still angry at my wife and sister-in-law, but I've been able to control my anger. Her family keeps calling me, telling me I should give my wife another chance and that she'll be a good wife to me. When I refused, they said there's a chance I might not be able to see my son. That scared me. I love my son deeply, even though he isn't mine biologically and he loves me as his father. But what if I'm not allowed to see him? What if they turn the situation against me? That's what I'm worried about. This isn't about me, it's about my child's mental health. I fear they're trying to weaponize the situation and I don't want that to happen. Am I being unfair to myself if I stay with my wife for my son's sake and help him? There are horrible people for using your son as a hostage, to blackmail you into keeping their cheating daughter as your wife. You need to keep those texts and send them to your lawyer. Show them as proof that your wife is not fit to parent a child if she can use the child to blackmail you to do what she wants. My issue right now is not about getting back at my wife, my sister-in-law, or her family. I want to avoid fighting with them. I want them to realize that we can't keep fighting with each other, not for us, but for our son, their grandchild. I'm still angry, but I've decided to approach things peacefully and try to get along with them after my therapy sessions. That said, I hate every one of them, except my wife. I still love her, but I also hate her for her betrayal. I'm going above and beyond for my son. That's my priority. Putting my anger aside, my son doesn't deserve this much pain. He's so young, just 5 years old. I want a clean divorce and to co-parent, but my wife and her family are making everything so difficult for all of us. What kind of mother is she? She doesn't seem to care about our son, she just wants me back. Even if I decided to stay with her, our son would eventually realize that I'm not his biological father and that his parents hate each other. If he weren't so young, I would tell him the truth myself. But right now, there's no way to handle this without my wife agreeing to cooperate. I don't want conflict, but I also think it's unavoidable. I don't really know how to help my son in this situation. You have to fight for him, or you have to back away. This middle-of-the-road approach is how you end up trapped in a loveless marriage, as she's already willing to cheat and getting stepped on by your sister-in-law. Make your choice, but don't stay there with her family knowing that you are basically being forced into a situation like this. and your sister-in-law able to hold him against you. As much as it may hurt OP, he should leave the kid for the kid's sake. I know people will jump at me for saying this, but this is the best option for OP as well as the kid. OP's soon-to-be ex-wife and her family will continue to use the kid as a pawn to drag OP into staying into the relationship. And once OP leaves, she will use the kid to hurt OP. And in doing so, she will end up causing emotional damage to the kid. OP may try to use her blackmailing to get custody, but considering OP left the kid, they might use that against OP to portray him as someone who might leave the kid in the future. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband's dad and dad's wife that I will not change our daughter's name because it hurts the wife's feelings? My husband, 29 male, has parents who divorced when he was 2. His dad remarried 2 years later to his wife, Sharon. Sharon and my late mother-in-law, who passed away when my husband was 8, were on very bad terms. Sharon has said that my mother-in-law made her life hell, wished her dead, laughed when she suffered 3 back-to-back miscarriages, tried to get CPS to take custody away from father-in-law and her, and attempted to remove her from the picture entirely using CPS. Sharon claims the only reason my husband never called her anything other than Sharon and always saw her as an outsider is because of mother-in-law. However, father-in-law's own siblings have said this is not accurate. They said Sharon and mother-in-law simply disliked each other. While they acknowledged that mother-in-law was dismissive of Sharon's role at times and didn't regard her as an equal in parenting, they said mother-in-law was nowhere near as bad as Sharon and father-in-law claim. When my mother-in-law passed away, my husband's relationship with father-in-law and Sharon deteriorated significantly. He forbade them from attending the funeral, saying that if they tried to come, he would run away until he was placed with other family members. My husband told me this himself. Father-in-law and Sharon said they were afraid he would lash out at them, and since Sharon was pregnant at a time, they gave in. They claim my husband hates them for not being there, but it says that them following through and staying away was one of the better decisions they made. He hates that he had to yell and threaten to run away to stop them from insisting on attending. By the time we met in college, he had very little contact with them. In recent years, there has been slightly more contact, but it's still minimal. He told me the whole story about how rocky their relationship was, and I knew he never planned to be very close to them. Sharon calls my husband her son. She even introduced herself to me as his mom and was shocked that I knew she wasn't. I haven't met her or father-in-law much. I know my husband's extended family far better as he's much closer to them than to father-in-law, Sharon, or his half-siblings. I recently gave birth to our daughter and we named her after my mother-in-law. My husband did not invite father-in-law or Sharon to meet our daughter, but they found out about her name via social media and reached out to him to ask why. A couple of days ago, they approached me at the mall and asked me to talk to them. They told me they had found out about her name and wanted to know why we would do that to Sharon, asking how I could be okay with using my daughter to hurt Sharon's feelings. They said I should insist on changing the name, maybe to something after Sharon, since she has been here all this time, but definitely not a name that would hurt her feelings so much. I told them I would not change my child's name, just because it hurts Sharon's feelings. That's not even a consideration for us. I didn't want to hear more, so I left. However, since then, we've been inundated with texts from them calling me rude and disgusting for dismissing Sharon's feelings. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and hand this back to your husband to deal with. He's done a great job of putting them back in their place throughout his life, and this is just one more time. Not the a-hole. He is weighing what he does now, but he thinks cutting all contact is likely the best way forward because they don't bring joy to us. I love your Marie Kondo approach to them, lol. My husband really had that stick with him when he heard it. He said it should apply to relationships too, because if relationships never bring you joy, then you know they aren't good for you.